If you have watched Dhurandhar, you may have heard the phrase bleed India with 1,000 cuts. But what does it actually mean? Was it merely a slogan, a military doctrine, or a long term strategy designed to weaken India without fighting a full scale war? To understand the origins of this doctrine, we must go back to the 1947. After independence, the princely states of the Indian subcontinent were given the choice to decide their future. Most chose to join either India or Pakistan. But one state remained uncertain, Jammu and Kashmir. Maharaja Hari Singh, the ruler of Kashmir, initially wanted to remain independent. Pakistan, however, was unwilling to accept this possibility. In October 1947, Pashtun tribesmen from Pakistan's northwest frontier province, backed by elements within Pakistan, entered Kashmir. Facing a rapidly deteriorating situation, Maharaja Hari Singh sought military assistance from India. India agreed, but on one condition: Kashmir would have to accede to India. The Maharaja accepted and signed the Instrument of Accession, legally integrating Jammu and Kashmir with India. Indian troops were airlifted into the region and managed to halt the advance of the invading forces. The conflict eventually ended with a ceasefire, leaving roughly one-third of the territory under Pakistani control. But Pakistan's objective had not changed. It still sought control over the entire region of Kashmir. Nearly 2 decades later, that objective would lead to another war. In 1965, Pakistan launched Operation Gibraltar, a covert attempt to infiltrate forces into Jammu and Kashmir and trigger an uprising against Indian rule. Instead, it escalated into the Second Indo-Pak War. During the conflict, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto delivered a fiery speech at the United Nations Security Council, declaring that Pakistan would fight a 1,000 years war against India and would continue its struggle against India for generations. But once again, the war failed to achieve Pakistan's objective. The battlefield had delivered a clear message: capturing Kashmir through conventional warfare would not be easy. Yet an even greater setback awaited Pakistan. In 1971, a key moment in South Asian history began with the Bangladesh Liberation War in East Pakistan. The conflict arose in response to the harsh treatment and oppression by West Pakistan.
Why should they have killed so many of these people?
So far, we gathered during the last phase of the present armed struggle. They prepared a list of the intellectuals, journalists, professors, and teachers, and they picked up at least 250 intellectuals, journalists, and professors during the last 15 days.
Pakistan's plans during this time were bold. They aimed not only to crush the liberation movement, but also to absorb East India into a larger East Pakistan, turning Punjab into a Khalistan state and take control of Kashmir. However, these ambitions were opposed by the strong actions of the Indian armed forces. The result was a major defeat for Pakistan, marked by the surrender of its Eastern Command and 93,000 soldiers captured as prisoners of war who were later returned under the Shimla Agreement signed between Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Following this defeat, Bhutto introduced a troubling idea called Bleed India with 1,000 Cuts. This plan was put into action by Zia-ul-Haq, a military dictator who took power after a coup. Realizing that force wouldn't work to take Kashmir from India, Zia turned to different strategy involving cross-border terrorism. He supported and funded various militant groups, claiming they were fighting for freedom in Kashmir while denying Pakistan's involvement. This hidden support was organized by Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, which helped create groups like Dawat-ul-Irshad, founded by Hafiz Saeed and Zafar Iqbal. This group eventually became known as Jamaat-ud-Dawa and led to the formation of his armed wing, Lashkar-e-Taiba. In the 1990s, more ISI-backed groups appeared, including Jaish-e-Mohammed and Sipahi-e-Sahiba Pakistan, all aimed at stirring unrest in India. Hafiz Saeed made bold claims in a 1999 interview. saying jihad is not just about Kashmir. Today I announce the breakup of India. Inshallah, we will not rest until the whole of India is dissolved into Pakistan. Such statements fueled a series of devastating attacks, including the 1993 Bombay bombings, the 2001 Parliament attack, the 26/11 Mumbai attack, and the recent Pahalgam attack. India's responses to these challenges changed over time. From the 1980s to the early 2000s, the Indian Army used a strategy called the Sundarji Doctrine, which focused on deterring enemies through punishments. However, its weaknesses became clear during Operation Parakram, which was launched after the 2001 Parliament attack. This operation involved moving troops, but delays in mobilization made India's movement obvious to Pakistan. These setbacks led to the development of the Cold Start Doctrine, known as the proactive strategy. This new approach aimed to address the failures of 2002 and shifted from mobilization-based warfare to readiness-based warfare. This strategy has shown success in fighting terrorism, especially with the effective Operation Sindoor, launched in response to the Pahalgam attack, demonstrating India's determination to tackle threats swiftly and decisively.
Operation Sindoor was conceptualized with a clear military aim to punish the perpetrators and planners of terror and to destroy their terror infrastructure. What I do not state here, of course, is the often stated determination of India and its intolerance to terror.
The ongoing conflict between India and Pakistan continues to shape the region's history, highlighting the persistent struggle that remained relevant today.